Welcome to the PewterCast. I'm Brent Allen.
And I'm Ren Dex.
And today is Monday, March 20th, 2017, and this is episode 31, Inside the Combine. Well, happy spring, everybody. Spring has officially arrived for the 2017 year, which to me means one thing, and that's March Madness basketball, along with, football's coming up too. But for right now, Ren, how is things going with you? You got any basketball tournament brackets going? How's your spring treating you so far?
I'm undefeated in all of my basketball bracket tournaments, and that is because I did not fill one out. I have no losses. Robert Ayers put one out that he invited all of us fans to be a part of. You could have been a part of his, like I did. I saw that, and I almost jumped on it. I really did. The reason I didn't is because I've kind of lost track of college basketball. When all these one and dones started, I just wasn't a big enough fan. I was more of kind of having my team and following them. Now I still follow my boys, I still follow my Florida Gators. But as far as like knowing that if Gonzaga is going to beat Duke, like I'm lost. I was, 2 years ago, asked me, I was all over it. But yeah, this year it was just a no. But I almost jumped into Robert Ayers. Did you do it?
I did. I went in, I filled out the bracket, and I, in the most humble way I can possibly say, yours truly is currently sitting in the number one position in Robert Ayers' bracket of about 190 of our fellow fans out there. So to everyone else who's part of that bracket, sorry.
Sorry, that's a nice way to put it. 190 people. Do you have any losses? I mean, Jesus, you gotta be doing really. Go ahead. I
do. I have a handful that it is not a perfect bracket by any means. Actually, in the finals, I had my own Kentucky Wildcats, because I'm a homer like that, going up against Duke because I still hate Leitner, and I'd love to see these two play once again in the championship. And I'd love to see Kentucky just beat the ever-loving snot out of Duke. So I had them going in. And as we may know by now, Duke is not going to be in it. So that part of my bracket is completely wrong. But out of that, into the Sweet 16, I picked correctly 14 of the 16 teams going into it. Just one of those two happens to be Duke, who I had carrying all
so
the way
they found
through.
a way to screw you anyway. Yeah,
because I still hate Leitner. So... but yeah, so that's what it is. I actually tweeted it out. I said, who has two thumbs and is winning the Robert Ayers tournament bracket? This guy. And my man Robert Ayers liked it and retweeted it. So collecting that celebrity tweet right there.
Well done. Yeah, what did you say, 14 out of 16? That's hard. That's real hard, especially early. God, yeah. I'm impressive. Very impressive.
Hey, we had something fun happen this last week, Ren. This is our regularly scheduled main episode here, but we had a very fun Instant Cast show that came out this past week, which was a lot of fun. You got to be part of your first Instant Cast show as a host. Tell me, how was that for you?
Yeah, it was great. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I wasn't sure, like a bunch of things. I wasn't sure. First off, honestly, I wasn't sure if anyone was going to call, but we had like almost we had to start early because people were calling in when we were just trying to do the opening, so we started early. I think there was one gap in there, but besides that, it was just basically call after call after call, and it was fun to talk to people and get some different opinions on what people are looking at as Bucks fans, as far as like what they're looking at draft and combine and what they're worried about and not worried about. It was a lot of fun. It was a really fun show, and I'm really looking forward to doing all the ones that we're going to be doing Sunday nights.
Yeah, and if you listen to that show, you might have known that we had somebody call in from Puerto Rico, and we had a discussion about whether or not that was actually our first international phone call here at the PewterCast. And that segues real nicely. We got an email this week, Ren. Yeah, let me read this to you. It says, "Hey, Brent, I am just listening to the most recent podcast, and after hearing about the fan in Panama, I thought I would let you know of another international fan. I'm a huge Bucks fan and have been for many years. I go over all the websites daily to gather information I can about my beloved Bucks. I live in Brisbane, Australia. and in the last 5 years have been able to see each Bucs game with NFL Game Pass, not just what Fox or ESPN put on that week here in Australia, which is very rarely the Bucs. Amen to anyone who lives outside of the Buccaneers market. Keep up the good work on the podcast. I'd much rather listen to the likes of yourself and Ren with a show with positive thoughts than some which are more negative at times. All the best, Rick in Australia. What about that? We get 2 episodes back-to-back with international emails writing into us. What do you think, Ren? Thanks,
Rick. I mean, well, first off, I just want to say, like, being positive is a big thing for Brent and I. It's always easy to find flaws, and if there's something that we don't like, we're definitely going to talk about it. But we're not going to railroad a guy or dump on a guy. I mean, these are people, and even if you don't think they're good at what they do, they're still like the best 1% at that sport there is that are walking the face of the planet. So they're way better than you, and they're way better than me. But that's really cool. I'm glad that he heard the Instacast, and he heard the guy calling from Panama, and it sparked his interest enough to let us know he's coming all the way from Australia. So is he going to be calling? Have we locked that? Has he said he's going to try to call to an Intercast later on this season?
I just called him out on it. I said, man, you better get on it. You better do it. And our guy from Panama, Javier, hey, we'll take that phone call as well. Javier, you're more in our time zone than Rick is. Rick, you might have to be up real late at night if you're going to give us a call. But, man, we'd love to take both of your phone calls here into our next Instant Cast show, which is going to be... Yeah, we don't know yet. We'll figure that out, and we'll let you guys know. It's the
I was about to hear that for the first time myself. I'm like, oh, what? Got a call?
Yeah,
got a show? No. I got to start prepping.
Right. No. We'll get there. It's not quite yet. But anyway, so that was very, very fun. Well, Ren, why don't we go ahead and take a turn towards the show? We have a very special guest who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. We've got Trevor Sikkema from the PewterReport.com and also from the brand new PewterNation podcast, who's going to be joining us to talk all about the Combine 2 weeks late.
I'm excited. Trevor's like a really breath of fresh air into the Tampa Bay market as far as the sports scenes. He's kind of brought the next generation stats. If you ever watch read his cover 3 that you can find on Pewter Report. He does other stuff. That's my favorite. And like I said, I can't be happier he's here.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic, and we're here about 2 weeks after the Combine ended, and so we kind of did this on purpose just with the way the schedule fell, and what it did was Trevor actually got to be at the Combine, so he's going to be taking us inside the Combine of what are the things that maybe we didn't get to see if you're just watching it from home or maybe you're just reading the articles. So he's going to give us really that firsthand insight, and this has kind of given him some time to really think about it and digest it and kind of get it all situated in his brain. Really excited to have given him that time and to get him here on the show. And then for our top 3 segment today, we thought we'd just kind of, in light of the free agency, and that's kind of shifted out a little bit now. We've got the draft coming up here real soon. We're going to be taking a look at our roster kind of as it stands right now, and we're going to look at our top 3 position battles on the roster, which will be certainly very, very fun. And then we're going to start a brand new segment to close out the show today called Secret Confessions. Ooh, what could that one be about? Guys, all that's coming your way on tonight's episode of the PewterCast. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's been 1 week since you looked at me. Cock your head to the sides and I'm angry. 5 days since you laughed at me, saying get back together, come back and see me. 3 days since the living room. I realized it's all my fault but couldn't tell you. Yesterday you'd forgiven me, but it'll still be 2 days till I say I'm sorry. Hold it now, I want to hoodwink. Does it make you stop think? You'll think you're looking at Aquaman. I summon fish to the dish, although I like the chalet fish. I like the sushi cause it's never touch a frying pan. Hot like wasabi when I bust rhymes. Speak like Leanne rhymes because I'm all about value. Bert Camper's got the mad hits. You try to match wits. You try to hold me but I bust through. Gonna make a break and take a pick. I like a sink and they can shake. I like vanilla. It's the finest.
You're listening to episode 31 of the PewterCast. And here with us tonight to talk all about the Combine, we have a very, very special guest. We have Trevor Sikkema from PewterReport.com on the line with us. Trevor, how's it going?
It's going good, guys. Good to be with you tonight.
Well, Trevor, man, thanks so much for taking the time out to come and be a part of this show with us tonight. Tell us a little bit. You're kind of new to the Pewter Report scene. I know a lot of fans you're great at interacting with people on Twitter. The stuff you have added to Pewter Report, you're bringing a real new dynamic. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and just kind of let fans get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So born and raised in Bradenton, Florida, for people that's just a little south of Tampa. So kind of grew up on Tampa sports my entire life. Got to be a big Lightning fan, big Bucks fan, big Rays fan, all that stuff. After high school, went to the University of Florida, where I graduated with a broadcast journalism degree. Got my start there writing about the Florida Gators, getting to cover the SEC and college football. I did a lot for that on video as well as written stuff. And two, it's also where I kind of fell in love with the NFL draft and that side of pro football. Came back down, living in Bradenton now again. That's where I currently am, and just kind of was writing for different places here and there. Ended up getting a gig with Pewter Report, which has been a lot of fun lately. You guys and plenty of other people have reached out to me and told me that I'm doing some pretty cool stuff, and that's incredibly humbling. I'm glad that you guys enjoy it. And the Twitter stuff, the social media stuff, I guess I'm just kind of around to make sure that people are remembering why we follow and we love sports, and that's to have fun. You know, it's supposed to be light. It's supposed to be all these kinds of things. You know, you're supposed to enjoy the interactions here and there that we have with people, even if we're disagreeing or agreeing or whatever it is. So hopefully I'm kind of reminding people of that. That's kind of the mantra that I have, definitely of taking my work seriously, but not myself too seriously in these little situations and interactions that I have with people here. But glad you guys are enjoying it. Thanks for having me on. You know, it's cool to be a part of this and get to talk to so many different Bucks fans and have such a reach with you guys now. It's been fun.
Yeah, well, we're really glad to get you, man. And you know, Ren, I think you had said earlier, you know, Trevor's like a breath of fresh air kind of on the scene that we have here. So
yeah, definitely. We're big fans of Trevor at the PewterCast, and we're big fans of the Pewter Report. And not to lay it on too thick for him, since you know you've done it. And
the ego is just going through the roof. I'm going to start not responding to people and being super elitist. So just keep going.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. And then, but yeah, with your next gen stats and your cover 3 that's come out, it's become a must read really quickly. And every Buck fan knows it, and I've tweeted out a few times about how pleased that someone, especially a Gator alum, that's
there we go.
Has gotten on the Pewter Report to knock Mark Cook's smugness down a bit.
So hey, the first thing. The first time I had ever met Mark in person, we were at One Buck Place. I went there early to meet Scott. They open up the locker room. We're in the locker room talking to players. I walk up to Scott, and Mark's standing next to him. I kind of put my hand out to shake his hand, and he does the same. And the first word that he says to me is, "Hey, man, 4 in a row." Just how many times Florida State has beaten Florida in football, and I'm just like, all right, we're really starting there. And so, we had a laugh about it, and we poke fun. But people have also told me that they're like, thank God we got somebody to counterbalance Mark's Knowles factors.
Now, Trevor, as we record this, we are on a Monday night following the first weekend of March Madness basketball, and I know this is a football podcast, but it's just relevant to what we're doing. Florida State. Maybe did not have the best weekend this past weekend. How was it in the office today with Mark?
I made sure, in our first PewterNation podcast that we recorded last week before the tournament started, Mark made a point to make it known that Florida State was a higher seed than Florida was, and so the second that they lost and Florida won, you better believe that I was the first one to let him know that his team did not make the Sweet 16 and mine did. So it's the first kind of parting shot I've been able to have at him in a long time. So I'm hoping it's the first of many, but I was getting it out as much as I could to him, yes.
Well, for whatever it's worth, yeah, I am personally a Kentucky fan. I was born and raised right there in the Bluegrass State, and I remember living in Florida. It became a game for me because we didn't really have the in-state rivalry as much when I was growing up. So I would kind of find out whoever I was talking to if they were a Florida fan or a Florida State fan, and then I would pretend to be a fan of the other side. But the truth was I didn't care really at all because I was a Kentucky fan and I knew we'd beat both of you guys. So
you're not wrong. You're very not wrong.
At least in basketball. I can't say much for football, although it's coming up. Football's coming up. But, hey, let's get back to what we're really talking about college football, sort of kind of a little bit as these guys are transitioning. Trevor, you actually got to be at the Combine a couple of weeks ago, and I know we're a couple of weeks after the Combine, and that's really okay because it's kind of allowed time for the dust to settle a little bit and maybe to really collect all your thoughts, and we've just kind of come through the free agency, at least the certainly the opening week or so of the free agency. And hey, how about that? Just any quick thoughts on how the Bucs are doing or what's been going on with free agency, just from your point of view as somebody who gets to be there at $1?
Oh, I thought they did a fantastic job. Deshaun Jackson was their number one target all along. We talked with Jason Light and Dirk Cutter, both on and off the record, at the East-West Shrine practices and at the Senior Bowl practices, and it seemed as though every time, Scott did most of the talking with Jason, but it seemed like when we were sitting around, every time we brought up Deshaun Jackson's name, you could tell he kind of lit up a little. You could tell that there was something there. As much as he was saying, we're going to try to make our team better in whatever way we can, whether it's this guy or this guy, blah blah blah. But when we brought up Deshaun Jackson, you could tell that his face kind of lit up, and it's kind of like have you seen what that guy's been able to do over the last almost 10 years? And so that's kind of what he's obviously coming in to bring. And he was the number one choice for him, and he was the right number one choice. The Chris Baker signing, though, is and Bucs fans need to realize this, even outside of Tampa Bay circles, NFL people are noticing what a good signing this was. Because
yes,
Baker,
thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, because Baker was a top 20, I think, interior defensive player. And that's not like exclusively to the 3-4, the 4-3. Like, he was a top 20 interior defensive player, and they got him for $6 million a year, which, as we're kind of seeing the rest of these contracts get signed, is a huge bargain. And McCoy is going to have more space, more freedom, and less double teams than he ever has in his entire career this year. So I thought that was huge.
Trevor, you sound almost exactly like what Ren and I were saying on our last episode on the call-in show of what this signing, particularly of Chris Baker. Deshaun Jackson's fantastic, and I don't want to take anything away from that, but certainly the Chris Baker one is the one that me personally, I am most interested in that one and seeing how that one comes into play as the season goes on. Because Deshaun Jackson, I think he's the perfect complement really to what we have in Mike Evans. He gives us what Mike Evans doesn't give us, and Mike Evans gives us what Deshaun Jackson maybe doesn't give us. So that's a great tandem. But this Chris Baker thing, man, and I think there's going to so much is going to be said for the attitude that he's going to help bring to this team, and what he's going to mean for the team. So it's certainly. Fans, I think, are noticing, and we've seen it, and I love that other people outside of Tampa are really beginning and already are seeing that one as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And his attitude as well, you just touched on it a little bit there, is I think that even over the last 2 years, like we're talking with Robert Ayers and Brent Grimes as well, the players and the talent that Jason Light has brought in have been great, but these guys are also high, I guess, like I'll say, like highly motivated guys who are ready to do what they can with. They're not guys who are just coming here for the money or things like that. And Light actually talked about this when we met them for the opening press conference. He said one of the questions was, are you finding it different this year than years past to be able to get guys to Tampa in free agency? Mm-hmm. And he kind of smiled and laughed a little bit, and he said, yes, Tampa is truly becoming, this, and he uses the word destination. Who knows if they're there yet? Mm-hmm. But he's saying in years past, Tampa has had, the whole, no state tax thing, getting to live in Florida, having the cap space, blah, blah, blah. Like, they've had all of these things. But Light said they have still had to try to overpay a little bit, some more than others, for these big name free agents to come to Tampa. He said it's not really the case now. And you're kind of noticing that with the kind of players that are coming in, these guys who want to win and who want to play in this locker room and for these coaches and blah, blah, blah. And so, it really is kind of a changing of the culture, and you're seeing that more. It started, I think, with last free agency, definitely the way that he brought people in, and I think it's continuing this free agency, and I thought the pickups were great so far.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And also, I remember Jason Light was touting how Jameis was becoming a big piece of the draw of free agency. I believe he said that at the Combine interview where you were at, which is what we're going to talk about mostly. But yeah, I just, you hit it right on the head with Baker, and then even Wilcox is a fill need. But I really like Wilcox's attitude, how he said that Mike Smith takes pretty good players, and he pointed himself out, turns into great players, and brought another kicker in. There's going to be great competition there, which I didn't think somebody of that stature was going to come in and challenge Aguayo, and fill the long snapper need. So yeah, everything was like full steam ahead. Everything's clicking for them right now.
Yeah, and I think that's the perfect segue into our topic. So, Trevor, you were at the Combine, like I said, just a couple of weeks ago. How are you feeling? Maybe the rush of everything has been, has subsided, and now you've really been chewing on the meat of the Combine. What are you thinking about everything that you saw there? Here we are, kind of a few weeks later, and particularly what that may pertain to the draft and how what we've done in free agency might again affect that. And how are you feeling just kind of on this side of it?
Well, so this is my first Combine that I've actually been able to get to. I've been covering the draft since, either on my own or for different websites since like 2011, 2012. So, I know the whole big board rankings, watching film game, analyzing these prospects, blah, blah, blah. But to go to the Combine for the first time, you actually get to see these people in person. And the most important part for me of the Combine was getting to talk to these guys and watch how they are during interviews. And I don't want to say, I don't want to say like negatives or positives, because personalities are different here and there. Like Marcus Mariota was the nicest guy in the world, and he was super quiet, and people thought that was a red flag, and they were stupid for that. But just watching how guys interact to different questions, how they are in front of the media, that was really cool. That was probably the coolest part to me, is getting to see how these guys were personality-wise. These people that you have watched hours and hours of their game tape on, and you're trying to analyze their entire careers that are about to come up, and you're trying to predict the future about them, and you don't even know them. That's kind of like that's the biggest X factor in all that, is we can say all we want here and there about, this guy's got talent, he's good in this scheme, he's this kind of player. But at the end of the day, like most of the time, none of these draft analysts ever even get to talk or see these guys live in person, figure out who they are. And that's actually a really, really big part of their development. And so getting to do that part of the scouting was really, really cool. That was, I think, the biggest takeaway for me, is just which guys were more outgoing, or how they handled themselves and things like that. So that was probably the coolest part for me in my first Combine experience, as well as getting a firsthand thing of which guys are talking to which team and that.
Yeah, I watched the Combine from beginning to end on on NFL Network, and I did a promotion that I was going to live tweet the Combine. I do not recommend that for anyone. Pretty much after the 40-yard dash, like I thought, like I was going to get to see the vert, I was going to get to see the broad jump. Like all that stuff wasn't on the network. So pretty much after the 40 Combine, I just sit there and I just have to sit there and watch in case something
right.
because I promised these people all this stuff. But going back to the interviews, I saw on the network that I heard you got to ask Mike Mayock a question. Just
I did.
Throwing that out there. There. Who was like, of all the people that you met, because I know it was like a big room, and I'm pretty sure I got this information from you, was like, 12:15 someone's here, and 12:20 someone's here, and of bouncing around the room. And I was watching, and I followed a lot of your videos that were on Twitter of some of them. Who came off as someone who surprised you, or was like, hey, you know what, I really like that guy. Like, take out all the football things, just as a person, who was like one of your favorites there at the Combine?
I think Derek Rivers. Okay, so if I had to pick like a favorite guy, Derek Rivers, and I only got to hear him for probably a minute or two. He's the pass rusher for Youngstown State. He's kind of a guy who's really on the rise, getting into that fringe late first round, early second round rate. He was just such a great guy, like a humble guy. And they asked him about his accomplishments and things like that, and what he would do. And like, if we're talking about a guy who sounded motivated to seriously succeed in any kind of scheme, who was both, like, I know this is kind of cliche saying this, but like humble and hungry. He was one of those guys who I do really just stuck out to me. Another guy, I think David Njoku from Miami, was one of the most charismatic dudes there, and he had a pretty dang big crowd around him, and people were very interested to see, because they were really hyping him up the few weeks going into it, because he was supposed to blow it up and all of that, and he ended up performing really well. And people just wanted to listen to him talk, and they asked some questions here and there about his time at Miami, why he didn't get the ball so much, why he left early, all this stuff. And he did a lot of his interview just on the fly, gave honest answers. Just you could tell he was a very outgoing kid. He kept having a smile on his face. And that's another thing that I like to notice about people. When you're getting asked questions about a future job and a lot of things about how you answer this, all these things are mini job interviews, and how you're portrayed for the first time to the public. If you could handle that with a smile, like be honest and just look like you're excited for it, that's something that just stands out to me. I'm not saying it's a do or do not thing for success for prospects, but that's something that really stands out to me if you can be able to do that. So I guess
Trevor, let me bounce off that for just a second, just because I'm real curious, because this is I'm assuming that very, very, very few of our listeners have ever gotten to be at the combine. So this is really interesting to just kind of get a firsthand perspective of what's going on out there. As you're talking to these guys, you kind of mentioned these guys are like in a job interview type situation, which is very true. That's exactly what it is. But it's playing in the NFL is not like any other kind of job that anyone is ever going to have in the rest of their life. Are these guys at 19, 20, 21, maybe 22, like, are they aware of that? Are they treating it as such? Because I don't know that I would have had the maturity or the composure at 18, 19, or 20 to talk to an NFL coach and represent myself like I'm interviewing for a job. Like, do these guys seem to understand that?
Some do more than others. I will definitely say that. There are guys who sometimes were asked this question just point blank. They would ask them, what's it been like going through this process? Have you talked to, for example, the guys at Alabama? They have former players and friends that they've played with who went through this process before them, because Alabama guys, go to the NFL. It's just what they do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can tell that they have been taught a little bit here and there that, hey, watch what you say. It is a professional interview. You're putting yourself in front of the media, and this is the first time of for the rest of your career that you're going to be in front of the media like this. Because a lot of guys, let's face it, you look at a guy like Brian Hill, who's the running back from Wyoming. He may end up being like my
guy. I can't believe you brought him up.
He might be a sleeper running back who could turn out to be a starter here and there for even a couple years. Who knows? He could be a starter for 3-4 years. He was not getting this media attention to Wyoming. You know what I'm saying? And so for guys like him or Kareem Hunt or even Taylor Moton or even Corey Davis, whatever. This is the first time that you really experience national media. And some guys, like I said, they do handle it better than others. For example, some guys you could tell need a little bit more help in, I don't know if I want to call it maturity or humility or what, but for example, Michigan State's Malik McDowell.
Oh, I'm glad you brought him up. That's exactly where I was going.
So he's at the podium, and he literally says on live television, yeah, I just stopped listening to what my coaches said, and they basically just gave up trying to tell me what to do, and I just did my own thing because I was that good. Are you serious? You just said that? What? You can't, dude. what are you doing? Like, this is that's one of those things where
that does not check the coachable box.
No, that's like, and trust me, like, Malik McDowell is freaking good. Like, this dude can play in the NFL, and all he had to do that weekend was not, and because the whole question around him was, and Michigan State kind of has a growing reputation in this. Like, you heard the same things about Connor Cook last year, which were true, by the way. I have hashtag sources on that. But he had a narrative about him that was like, hey, he's kind of a jerk, and he's kind of a really crappy teammate to have. And he gets up on national TV. All he has to do is not make it seem like he's a jerk for 10 minutes, and he couldn't do it. That's a problem to me. That's a maturity thing to me. Carl Lawson, a little bit under the radar with that, also kind of gave the same thing. People were asking him about his injury, like the injury to his shoulder, and he kind of got snippy with somebody. He kind of was like, well, how many games I missed last year? And the reporter was just like, none, but you've had the problem in the past. And he was like, yeah, well, I didn't miss any games last year for it. And you're just like, all right, guy. Okay, well, all right. And so you definitely, there's a lot, when you're in a situation like this and you're on the spot, and this goes for really even any job or any situation, there's a lot more bad that can happen than good. And so you kind of just need to manage yourself and make sure you're not catastrophic in the things that you say. And at the combine, those are two guys that I remember who I was just like, all right, I'm kind of like raising a flag at you and wondering like how the heck you couldn't stand 10 minutes without just like composing yourself, So that was just kind of my thing. I think I got way off topic there about whatever we were talking about, but there you go.
No, that was all good stuff. I mean, seriously, like I'm sitting over here, in the spare bedroom of my house, just smiling away, listening to your stories. But before we move on to actual play evals, I have some questions on some players that I like. You've kind of already hit Brian Hill. I didn't have him down, but I was wondering about him.
That was for free then.
Thank you. Can you tell me what is the big deal? And okay, first off, did you go to St. Elmo's?
No. Okay. So
what is the shrimp cocktail? Is it covered in gold and sings to you? What is this thing?
So I'm on the plane there, right? And the guy who's sitting next to me, I was actually flying from Reno to Indianapolis, and the guy was just, small talk, and he's from Indianapolis, and I asked him, I was like, hey, I'm going to be there for the weekend for the combine, and he seemed to not really know what the combine was, which is weird if you've been from Indianapolis your whole life, but whatever. And he said, if you got to go to one place, go to St. Elmo's and get this like cocktail thing. And I said to him, I was like, a restaurant called St. Elmo's sounds like it's expensive. Is expensive. And he was just like, yeah, a little bit. And I was like, all right, that ain't for me. That's not, I'm not going to go there. So we ended up looking at the menu, and we were just, either that or go to a sports bar and get 30 wings for $10. You know how it goes. So we obviously opted.
Didn't you have a steak the first day there? I could have sworn you tweeted out you were talking about getting a steak.
Did I?
I don't know. Maybe you were still in Reno. I don't know. Go ahead.
I think I was still in Reno for that because I don't think I ate. No, I didn't eat fancy. I didn't eat fancy. It was strictly business, my friend. But no, I didn't. I know people who went, and I know how hyped up that little shrimp cocktail thing is. But unfortunately, I don't have a firsthand account of it.
All right. Maybe next year. Okay, now player evaluations. Okay, first thing I want to ask, and this is going to, we're going to talk about Obi Melanfanu.
Okay.
I found him during the Senior Bowl. I was kind of just scrolling through the heights, weights, and about positions I think the Bucs needed. And I saw this 6'4", 220, and I'm like, what the who's this guy?
Right.
And then you put out an article. I'm not sure which one it was talking about him. So then obviously that piqued my interest more. Then with his combine was just obviously crazy. The vert, the broad. The 40, 4.4 flat. Two things. One, his recognition seems to be the big knock on him. He doesn't see plays develop as fast as he should at that position. How much do you, when you're doing play evals, do you take into like how good, and no knock against UConn's secondary coach, but how, like, you know, he's playing for UConn. He's not playing for an NFL team. He's not playing for like the Alabamas and the Clemsons of the world. Mm-hmm. How much do you take that into account of the play of, for lack of a better word, not being coached up enough?
You know, so this is Obi is such an interesting study because you've had players from UConn, for example, like Byron Jones, who's been a phenomenal NFL player early on in his career, and then they have another corner, Summers, who led the nation in interceptions last year, not 2016, but 2015, and then obviously they have Melifonwu. So I don't know what's up with their secondary players or the secondary coaches, but like they got something going on down there. But just to go back to your first point, recognition is definitely it's the area that he needs to get better at. And unfortunately for him, instincts and recognition are very important for the safety position. So even if you are extremely athletic, we've seen a lot of safeties come and go from the combine and, you know, college to combine to the NFL who just couldn't get it. Because even if you're supremely athletic, the best athletes on offense are still going to burn you if you can't have the awareness to know where they're going. So I think I said this when he ended up running that 4.4 flat, which I tweeted out before he ran it. I said, if Obi runs a 4 flat, I'll faint. I didn't faint, but probably had somebody fanning me at the time in the media room because that was unbelievable. But in that breakdown I did, that cover 3 breakdown that I did of Melifonwu, the biggest gripe I have on him is that he at times acts like he's more athletic than everyone else on the field. And it kind of got him in trouble. And this is before the combine, right? And so turns out he is more athletic than everyone else on the field. So him having that kind of combine was crazy to watch with my film review in my mind, because now it's, you know, I'm supposed to be the draft guy for Pewter Report, and people all the time are asking me, what do we do with Melifonwu? Like, could the Bucs get him? Where should they pick him? Blah, blah. And I'm just like, I don't know. I wish I did, because
yeah.
Because like I said, instincts are it is the most important thing for a safety. Whether you're playing strong safety or free safety, doesn't matter. Instincts and awareness are the most important part because you're the last guy who's there. You have to be able to read the entire offense. You have to know your zone, and you have to know other people's zones as you're watching the other offensive players move along their routes. So you have to be able to know and recognize this. And with Melifonwu, when the ball was out of the quarterback's hands, nobody could fly out of the ball faster. He was there. And so with his tape, you kind of notice that and you go, oh, wow, he's always around the ball. But really, if you're going to get the most out of his athleticism, he has to be able to recognize that and put it to work before the ball leaves the quarterback's hands. So what do you do with a guy who's all worldly but still has to improve at the most intangible area of the position that he plays? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard. Yes. It's just so hard to explain what to do with Melifonwu because he is so athletically gifted, and he could turn out to be an incredible safety. But it is a bigger risk. I would just say this: it is a bigger risk picking Melifonwu at the spot you're going to have to pick him than Bucs fans are currently being truthful about.
Right. I totally understand. Yeah. It's like being the best waiter in the world, but you can't carry a tray really that well.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty important to the job. Yeah, the reason I came up with that coaching thing, and you kind of set me straight with, well, you know, you had Jones last year, and then Summers as well, was just me trying to convince myself for the Bucs to take him at 19, because you and I both know he's not going to be there at 50.
Right.
He's just not. And I just think I just think of all these tight ends that are coming in, like the best tight end class, like so that everyone can remember, they ran the fastest average time ever. They broke all kinds of records in other different events. And all these guys are like 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 230, 240, 250. And you can't cover them, like I love Buda Baker as well, but he's 5'10", 180, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, but with someone's size as Melifonwu, like that's just why I just can't let go of him at 19.
That's why I also think that, like you just mentioned, if they don't pick him at 19, he's not going to be there. And I think the big reason for that is because because of the numbers that he put up, someone is also going to try him at cornerback if they have to. Like if we're looking at a team, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, that might need secondary help overall, whether it's outside corner or safety, they got to take this guy because he could end up playing either, and you could plug if he struggles at one, you can still plug him into another, and you could still possibly get more development time, which might even be key out of a guy like that. So yeah, if they don't. It's going to depend how offensive players fall in this draft. And I'm going to be honest, I think the draft is going to go way different than what people are thinking right now.
Yeah, it's going to go sideways quick?
Yeah, I think it is.
You mean almost like it's going to nullify every mock draft that has come out, since they started doing it?
Well,
mock drafts.
I mean, other than my mock drafts, which are all perfect and flawless. Yeah, it's. I do think that this draft is gonna get weird, and it could get weird real quick because Obi, and two players that might throw a giant wrench in this are Obi, and then whatever happens with Hassan Reddick, like wherever he goes, because if he go let's just say that Obi and Hassan end up going top 15. Then you're just going to watch all of the other DB and linebacker pieces fall, and they're going to fall quick. And so then what happens? Do running backs slide? Like, does Dalvin not get picked until later than 25? Because people keep telling me I'm crazy for that, but I
won't.
I don't really know. I just think this draft's going to get really weird.
So it's really deep and. Go ahead, Brent.
So let me ask you this. In talking about that, a couple years ago when we drafted Allie, that seemed to be like a shot out of the dark. Like nobody expected this kid from a D3 school, Hobart College, to get drafted, really in the second round, or third round or whatever it was that he was third round, right?
Second
round. Okay, thank you. Second. Yeah. Nobody expected that to happen. Or was there anybody that you saw that maybe isn't even on a radar that maybe should be? Anybody in that kind of a category that might be a surprise? That people might want to start taking a look at.
Well, let me think here. So, if you've been reading Pewter Report. We've kind of been hyping up Michael Roberts, who is a tight end from Toledo. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who led the nation in tight ends last year. And if they don't go with the tight end at 19, then they're probably going to set their sights on him. Kareem Hunt, the running back from Toledo, is another guy who some people know, others don't, who could be a running back who could take over. Brian Hill, already mentioned him. Just trying to think off the top of my head who late round guy would be.
What? Come on, you can't pull a Division 3 player out of your butt that the Bucs going to take in the second round. No, I thought you did this for a living, Trevor.
I know, man. I know. I'm blanking.
No, just to bounce off your tight end thing, and this is another one of my draft crushes. This will be the third one. I mean, I've talked Obi Melifonwu for a couple of podcasts now. You hit Brian Hill. Every time I talk about him on Twitter, everyone just shut your face. So you've given your 2 cents. I'm going to leave it at that. Am I crazy to think that George Kittle is the second most complete tight end in this draft?
So I have actually only watched a very limited amount of him, and the reason was because I was like, well, I mean, this guy's not going to get drafted that high, and then ends up having a crazy good combine. So I will say that, like, not from my own eyes watching him, but I have read people who have kind of said the same thing, and maybe not to that extent, but they're like, hey, this dude might be better than he might be a better pick than Jake Butt, who just tore his ACL, or Jordan Leggett, or somebody like that. After you get past the big three, who are Ingram, Howard, and Njoku, like, I've seen people lobby for Kittle like he could be a legitimate like day 2 pick, and I was like, all right, wow. So I have not looked at him myself. I will for sure in these next couple of weeks, and I will get back to you on that. But I would just say that you are not alone in your thinking that he is quickly gaining steam, whether it be just from the media and the NFL has been paying attention to him all along, or we're all catching up at the same time. But his combine definitely opened his eyes and raised his stock.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was until he ran that 4.42, I think it was. Anyway, it was the third fastest among tight ends, just behind Ingram and Howard.
Crazy.
And I was like, what? And then he did, and then he backed it up again, because sometimes there's like a huge gap every once in a while. You're like, what? That guy ran what? And then he runs it again, and he's like 6/10 slower. You're like, oh, okay. But no, like, he backed it up. So then I started, scouring the internet for tape on this guy. And obviously he can block. He's from Iowa. I mean, that's what they do. And with that kind of speed, you get that kind of separation in the red zone. I was just like, I was like, I had no idea. So it has pretty good hands from what I can tell. But anyway, those are all my combine questions. Brent, you got anything that?
Yeah, and mine has less to do with individual players and more Trevor. I don't know how much interaction you got with Light and Cutter and any of the other coaches for the Bucs while you're out there, but were you able to assess or just even I don't know, look over and look through the crystal ball and see in their eyes or whatever, like how were they reacting, or was there any particular player they were reacting to maybe more one way than maybe some of the other ones? Or I know you didn't really get to be in with the interviews. Those are closed door from what I understand.
Right.
But what was your feeling maybe seeing the coaches there, and any insight you can give us into what they were looking at and what they were doing?
So I think the questions that were kind of most asked of them is obviously what they're going to make of the running back position, and that was something that we got to ask them firsthand there, kind of in a very closed setting, which was good because I think that they were able to open us up a little bit more to what they were thinking, like you were saying. So the Doug Martin situation, it sounds like they have not given up on Doug Martin. They spoke as if, I think they said that they had met Martin, I think a week before the combine. They had him in their offices. They just kind of talked about things, and I think Light and Cutter both said it was less about business and it was more about him, just making sure that he is right and all that kinds of stuff. So they're definitely going to make sure that is good first. But I did not get any kind of like tone or this or that they were going to move on with him. So much so that when asked what they thought of this running back class, both of them, the first thing that they said, maybe not in the exact same words, but the first thing that they said when asked about this running back class, because we did ask them both, was, it's a deep class. You can get talent anywhere. That's what both of them said. And so to me, that kind of made me lean towards, okay, we're going to see how this Doug Martin thing plays out for the next month. If it doesn't get any better, it's okay. We might even take it into training camp. Who knows? But they're going to pick a running back in this draft, obviously. Mm-hmm. But them saying that to me made me feel like they're going to take one later rather than sooner. I know for a fact, likes Christian McCaffrey. I will just say that, but everybody does. It's all about value. But so I know that he likes him. I know he likes him. The other guys I don't know specifics on, but I also know that they have met with Marlon Mack multiple times. I know that they have met with Kareem Hunt multiple times. I know that they saw Brian Hill at his pro day, I think, and I'm trying to think of another running back. If you consider if you consider Curtis Samuel running back, they've talked to him multiple times as well, including at the combine. But so I would just say that, like, for the running back situation, and this is before they signed Rodgers, they seem to be very okay with their running back situation. And Light even reiterated this after Deshaun Jackson and Chris Baker's press conference when they asked him about the running back position again. Surprise, surprise. That they were very happy, or not happy, but they seem more content with their running back situation and possibly drafting a running back later in the draft than the fans do. So that was a big takeaway that I had.
Yeah, I think
I like it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's something that we have talked about, Ren. You and I have talked about on this show a few times, and I know it's certainly the mindset that I have been in as a fan, and it is not necessarily the prevailing mindset among fans, but is that, you know, the whole thing with Doug Martin is we're going to sit back and see what happens with him, you know, and they're kind of like what you said they're going to see how he's doing. Because we know the guy can play. You know, we know that if he's healthy and he doesn't have a bunch of other stuff going on, the kid can play. You know, so to see how he's doing and is he still going to be able to fit? It's just, how does that actually impact what they're doing? So that's real interesting. Well, I tell you what, for the sake of time, why don't we go ahead and we'll just kind of do like any final thoughts on the combine, anything coming out of it, you know, that you think fans should be aware of or that they should know. Ren, if you have any last final thoughts, please go for it.
Well, I'll just piggyback off what Trevor was saying there. And this also goes back to Pewter Report. When you took the transcripts, and I guess I don't know how you got them to Mark Cook, because he's complained on Twitter a couple of times of how he had to edit those things. But the sit down, with Buccaneer or local media only between Jason Light and Dirk Cutter. Obviously, I read those, and one of the things that I pride myself on, and you picked up on it too, because you're probably better at it than I am, was basically they're telling you we're not taking a running back in the first round. Now, you can throw the McCaffrey thing in there, and, you know, like you said, it's all about value, but they're looking like that's what I kind of came out of the combine in the interview. And that's basically how I found Brian Hill. I started looking at these at the hunts that that you guys talked about, but I wanted to go a little deeper. And Hill was just a guy that, you know, I latch on to one guy. You know, I'm not a draft. I don't analyze players and things. I just kind of find one guy that I like, and just, you know, hope and pray and cross my fingers they show up. So that's just, and that's who I got out of the draft. And thank you for your coverage that was there, and those tweets and getting those transcripts out. It was much more fun to watch you on Twitter than it was to watch me. That's for sure.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of typos in those things, because I know that, to quote the great Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last, on things like that. So I was typing out those things at like Mach speed just to get it to Mark and Scott, because I knew that they would skim it over. And one thing really quick, just because I know people ask me this, the Bucks did not meet with a single offensive lineman at the combine. So
great inside stuff.
There you go.
Interesting.
As if what we
is it interesting? I don't think it's interesting. I think it's more like duh. Yeah, we know that. But verified is great.
Yeah, we've been trying to tell people that they're that's another thing about the inside, you know, the exclusive local media thing that we had with them. They are going to ride this offensive line into the season. They were never going to sign a free agent. I mean, look at the money these guys are going for, who are just okay linemen. Well, I mean, like, the guy from Cincinnati is pretty good, but I mean, like, a lot of these other guys are just like okay offensive linemen, and they're getting stupid money. The Bucks were never going to fall for that, and it's a weak offensive line class. They were never going to take one high. Maybe they'll take one late, but I'm telling you, from the horse's mouth, multiple horses' mouths, and not calling the front office of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers asses. They are very happy with the offensive line that they have right now. Maybe not in performance, but in development wise, and I've tried to tell people that they're going to ride them this year. And if they again have a bad year, next year is the year that they almost completely blow it up, and they will.
Okay,
but
so
it ain't going to happen this year.
So Trevor, let me dive into that just a little bit. Is it that you think that they're actually happy with the line that they have, or they just don't see any players at the right value that are available, so they're going to just stay where they're satisfied to stay with where they are, or are they actually happy with the 7 or 8 guys that they have that they can plug into the line right now?
Right. You're right. That was I guess a poor choice of words on my part. You are more correct in what you said. They're satisfied with where they are because they know that their offensive line is young. For example, Jason Light has said multiple times in interviews, he has mentioned that Donovan Smith should technically be going through the draft process right now. And instead, he's going into his 3rd year in the NFL because he was one of the youngest players in the draft when he came out. So this is a guy who could very well have been going through the draft this year, and instead he has 2 years of the NFL under his belt. And so I think that you are more correct in saying that they are satisfied with where they are for the time being. But yes, you best believe that if they struggle again in ways that are not showing any kind of development or growth, stuff's going to change, and it's going to change next year because they're not going to waste. I don't foresee them wasting any more time with an offensive line that they don't believe in. And if this year goes by and they struggle again, they will turn it and they will say, hey, we really don't believe in this offensive line. And you're going to see it in the moves that they make next year. But it's not coming this year. It's really not.
Yeah, and I think that's fair enough. That's I mean, especially when you look at, hey, that's great. Let's change up the offensive line. Well, who are you going to change it with? Like who is actually out there? And these guys are developing. We've talked about that. I mean, Allie and Donovan both just going into their 3rd year, right along with Jameis. We've still got DeMar coming out on the other side. We've got Sweezy. It looks like he'll be back. We've got Kevin Pamphile, who was a backup until this past year. So, and a couple other guys that are down the list just a little bit. So, they're growing, and, that's what I guess you're really looking for is if they're going to grow. And as you say, we can see what they're going to do next year, and we'll know it in the moves that they make. So, and for Trevor, for whatever it's worth, to say that they're happy is not a bad thing, because I believe that I heard Light and Cutter both actually use that word specifically, that they're happy with the line that they have. But I think satisfied might be a better word. Just for
I would agree. I would definitely agree. And another thing, just real quick, that people kind of gloss over is the fact that they have all this cap room. And a big reason why they have all this cap room is because 3 of the starters on their offensive line are playing on their rookie deals. And so that doesn't happen very often. Right. And the Bucs know that, and they're not going to ruin that before they have to. You know what I'm saying? Because left tackle other than quarterback is basically the highest paid position in the NFL, and they've got one playing on a rookie deal. And so obviously if Donovan Smith ends up sucking and he's not worth it, they're going to make a change. But I think that it is a missed point that they are able to make the splashes they have been in the last couple of years in free agency because they're in the situation that they're in and they're being patient with their offensive line. That's why I think everything is going to according to plan. And for them, they're hoping, obviously, they take a huge step up this next year. And if it doesn't, things are going to change.
Well, with that, it puts a little stab in my heart to hear you say that, because I played left tackle in high school, and man, maybe if I just worked a little harder. Second highest paid position in the team. Well, guys, that's going to wrap up this segment here, talking about the Combine. Fans, we're now going to turn this one back to you. We'd like to know your thoughts, really on our thoughts, or what did you think about the Combine? You can let us know by shooting us an email to the PewterCast@gmail.com, or you can find us out on Twitter at the PewterCast or on Facebook.com/the PewterCast. We do respond to all forms of feedback, and it's just part of what it is to be a part of this PewterCast family. Well, guys, coming up next, it's time for our top 3 of the show, and we're going to be looking at our top 3 position battles on the roster as they sit right now. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, PewterCast fans, happy off season. Hope you guys are soaking in the time off and enjoying okay, let's be honest. Aren't we all just ready to get back to some dang football? Well, guys, I can't do anything about the calendar, but maybe I can help us just a little bit and kind of keeping football at front and center where it deserves to be. And I'm going to do that by doing our first ever PewterCast giveaway. Now, you've heard us talking about changes that are coming to the PewterCast. This is going to be one of them. We're going to start doing some giveaways, which is going to be a ton of fun. And that's right, it is a giveaway. This is something for free. You don't have to pay us for it. It's absolutely free. And here's what we're giving away. We're going to be giving away an autographed picture of Kevin Pamphile. He was nice enough to send me over one of these, and we're going to turn around and send it back out to one of you guys, one of our fans. It's pretty cool. It's a full-color photo of him. His signature is pretty clear as day, and we're going to be giving it away. And all you have to do to enter to win this is head over to iTunes and leave us a review. That's all you got to do. Now, if you're already subscribed to us on iTunes, you're going to need to search for us like you aren't subscribed to us, and you'll see the review tab there. You leave the review, take a quick screenshot of it before you hit submit, okay? Just before you do that, and then send it over to me saying, hey, this was my review, and email it to me at thepewtercast@gmail.com. That's it. Leave us a review, send us the screenshot, and you're entered to win. It's as simple as that. Welcome back to the PewterCast. You are listening to episode 31. And for today's top three, really in light of the free agency happening and the combine and the draft is just a handful of weeks away, we thought we'd kind of take a look at the roster as it stands right now and talk about our top three position battles that we see happening right now. So, Ren, actually, I'm going to go to you first. What criteria did you have in picking your list, and what is your number three?
Well, criteria for picking the list, I also included draft projections into it. As the roster stands right now, there's a few big ones out there, but I couldn't get my third one in there without really bringing in a draft guy. So for number three, it's a little bit off the wall a little bit, but tight end. There's a lot of interesting things going on at tight end for the Bucs. As most of us know that there's really two tight end positions. Alan Cross and Luke Stocker play mostly a fullback. And then we got Cameron Brate, and behind him, there's a couple of, undrafted free agents. There's Tevin Westbrook, Florida. And I'm going to ask you, Trevor, because you were probably there when did he finish his career at defensive end, or did he switch to tight end before he left Florida?
No, he was a tight end at the end of his Florida career.
Okay. He's raw player, but the Bucs have had him on the practice squad for 2 years, and I think this is really a make it or break it for him. Super athletic, 6'5", 260 pounds, and then of course the draft. Njoku's been linked to us early on. Howard was linked to us. I'm in love with George Kittle. There's gonna be a changeover at the two starting tight end positions come week one. I'm pretty confident that Brate's going to be there, but whoever lines up in their second spot, it's honestly, I don't think they're on the team yet. But like I was saying, it's Tevin Westbrook, do or die for him this year. 2 years on the practice squad, he needs to make a splash in training camp, or I think his days with the Buccaneers are over. So for battles, Luke Stocker, Alan Cross, Tevin Westbrook, and then the tight end rookie they bring in. I'm really looking forward to seeing that one.
Yeah, tight end. Tight end is one of those. As you look at people as they're projecting the draft, I remember the first time somebody suggested that they might go tight end in the first round, and it made a lot of people stop and kind of scratch their head. But I think you're absolutely right. It is not that far off of something that could actually happen, and it might. But to bring that in, I think that's a good pick, because I feel like, and Trevor, you might have a better idea and sense of this, but I feel like tight end, where last year it felt like one of the most stacked positions, this year feels like one that we don't really have as much depth as we should or as we would like. So I can definitely see that being a big position battle we got coming up.
Yeah, just not the depth and being ideal in what you want are not one and the same for the Bucs right now. And so, going into last season in training camp, they really wanted Brait and ASJ to be able to play all the time and to have one guy on the line, maybe one guy as an H-back, maybe one guy in the slot, whatever. They just wanted to create mismatches wherever they possibly could. They still got Brait, and Brait is great, but oh crap, that rhymed. But looking down the depth chart, you're really not going to find that player who can do that New England 2 tight end, even kind of what the Saints did for a little bit with the 2 tight end set when they had Jimmy Graham. They just don't have that right now, and that's what they're looking for. So I do think they're going to add somebody like Ren said.
Very good. Well, Trevor, how about you, man? We'll go to you next. What would be any criteria maybe you used in looking at this, and what would be your number 3 position battle on the roster as of right now?
So does number 3 mean are we like ranking these? Like, is number 1 the biggest? Just so I'm clear.
Usually it is. Yep.
Okay.
But I'll let you take it however you want to, man.
Okay, then number 3, I am going to go with everybody's favorite hot button topic, and that is kicker. Because now that they brought in Nick Folk, I think that him and Roberto Aguayo, what's going to play out between those two guys is going to be not only very interesting to watch, but it is going to be very important for how this team wins close games down the stretch, because it's no secret that Roberto Aguayo was the best college football kicker of all time, and it's also not a secret that his first year was kind of him being a head case, and that is not good for a kicker. Mentality is such a big deal for that, and it's something that is also very fragile. And if you ruin that, then sometimes you ruin kickers for forever. And I'm not saying that Aguayo is a lost cause. I know people really, really hated that he was used they acquired him with a 2nd-round pick, and I agree. That's wasn't an ideal thing, but them just bringing in Nick Folk, I think it says a lot to Jason Light, where he's not afraid to admit that he possibly made a mistake, and he's going to move on from it as soon as he possibly can, if it in fact was a mistake. And they're going to get a pretty good look in training camp in the preseason on whether or not Aguayo can come back and actually respond well to competition and pressure. Because if not, Folk's going to take his job. And that's just plain and simple, because Folk can hit from beyond 45, and that's something that Aguayo just could not do. And if you're going to be a playoff contending team, and if you're going to win games in December and January, you have to have a kicker that's going to hit from beyond 45 yards. So that would be my number 3.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that was on all of our lists, and I had convinced myself that Jason Light was just going to sign some undrafted free agents, off the streets and out of the draft to come in and give Aguayo. But big props to him. He brought in, probably, the biggest gun he could find, and he's paying him, and they're bringing him in to. Plus, it's hard to find a kicker, a veteran kicker that's going to come in and battle for a kicking job.
Right.
So, yeah, it was just I was really impressed that he brought him in there, and I think it's going to be, I don't know how you have this ranked at number 3. I don't know how would you have it 2 at 1, but because this is it. This is the battle, and I can't. I kind of when I first heard that Nick Folk was coming in, first thing I thought of was them kind of like on the practice field, surrounded by the whole team, and they're just like battling out, kind of like Escape from New York style. It's just like whoever leaves the ring alive gets the job. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch. I can't wait.
Yeah, I kind of have to recuse myself, I think, a little bit from this conversation, because I spent the entirety of last year sticking up for Aguayo and defending him, and even creating the hashtag I'm with 19, which I've had a few people ask me about that here in the last couple of days. And guys, that hashtag was really about supporting the kicker that we have on the team, which at the time was Roberto Aguayo. And if in this coming season that's going to be a different kicker, then I'll gladly turn it to hashtag I'm with whatever Folk's number is going to be, 4 or whatever it is. Because I just feel like we need to be supporting the guys we have there. I am very interested to see how this goes. Because I think I mean, I'm more like, I guess almost from the human aspect of it, of what is Roberto going to do now with this deal, and what does that mean for Jason? You know, is you know, it was a big gamble to go up and to trade away a pick and go get this guy, and you know, if it did work out, if it doesn't, you know, Jason often says, no risk it, no biscuit, right? Well, the other side of risk is that it may not work out. And, you know, certainly I would have the questions of, have we given him enough time? You know, is the 1 year really enough time to let that go? I don't know. But, you know, I'm just really interested to see. And like anyone else, I want the best kicker that we can possibly have on the field. And if that's somebody other than Roberto Aguayo, hey, I'm all for it. But, for my own personal sake, I'm still rooting for Aguayo. I want to see him go in there and really, I want to see him legitimately beat Folk. Nothing against Folk. I just want to see that happen, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. So
I think everybody does.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah,
or everybody should. You know,
there you go. I think everybody should. I don't think everybody does. I think there's a lot of people that honestly, I think you're just assholes and would like, they kind of want to see him fail just to prove their point. And none of those are PewterCast listeners, because all of my listeners are amazing. But you guys are great. But there are people out there who
that's a true story. I can confirm that report.
I've met every single one of them, and no, that's not true. But I love all of our listeners. But you know, I do think everybody should at least want to see the guy succeed. So, so with all that said, my number 3 is one that has been a topic of conversation really this entire offseason. And for me, the position battle is the center position on the offensive line. We still have Smith on the roster. We re-signed Holly, which actually going into it, we didn't think that we would. And Ren, you and I debated it quite a bit with our Love 'em and Leave 'em episode as to whether or not Holly would be back. And certainly we would have understood them not bringing him back, but they did. And the thought that a lot of people have had, at least the people that I've talked to, Trevor, and I don't know what the media folk are saying, but the thought was being that they'd maybe slide over Allie, move Pamphile to the other side, use Sweezy on the one side, and, you know, Allie would kind of become our new starting center. So I'm real interested to see what happens with this particular position. Is it Joe Holly? Last offseason, I was very adamant about the fact that Holly should start over Smith. I am not as adamant about that this year. I'd like to see a real healthy competition there, and you know, let's put our best guy in front of Jameis that we can, and if that winds up being Smith or Allie or someone else, I'm all for it. But yeah, I'm real interested to watch what happens with this particular position battle at center.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, you know, that was another behind kicker. That's the one to where to go is the center position. I would really like to, you know, see if we can get some more inside information out of Trevor. I think that they're going to give it. They're going to give the Alley experiment, quote unquote, a try, and I think they're going to give it every chance to fail. Every time you hear them talk, you know, I believe it was at the combine, Dirk Cutter said, "Yeah, we got a lot. You know, they cross train, blah blah blah. You know, Kevin Pamphile can play center, but you know, and this is not verbatim, but it's like the guy that can really play center is Ali Marpet. Like he said that in the interview. So I think it's going to be full steam ahead, and I'm really excited to see, you know, when OTAs run around, like, and the first team offense gets out there, like who's going to take the first snap. Have you heard anything?
So I'll just, I guess, like, I can, because this is actually my number 2. So I'll just transition into this is what my number 2 position battle would be. What's going to happen at guard, mainly with J.R. Sweezy, because, you know, going through back surgery is a big deal, especially when you have that much weight on your body and you're going through that much force all the time. So Sweezy, I know he's been cleared, and I know he's going to start practice and everything, but, you know, like him lasting a whole season or, you know, being the healthy guy that he used to be, it's not a guarantee. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens really with him and Pamphile, because they do like him a lot. I will say I've heard Light and Cutter multiple times talk about how they do like him. They do like Evan Pamphile. And so they like his versatility, like you said, Ren. But what's going to happen, I think, with Sweezy ultimately might decide what happens with Marpet, because
that's a great point.
I can't say this for sure, but I would assume that their ideal starting three interior is Sweezy, Marpet at center, Pamphlet at the other guard. That might be a little different than what actually happens, but I have to feel, just from the way that they've talked about those three guys, Sweezy, Pamphlet, and Marpet, and not only that, but how long they waited to give Joe Hawley a contract, makes me think that is what they kind of have, that they're going to want to have going into training camp. So I said this on the PewterNation podcast, the first episode that we did last week, that I think Ali Marpet at center has Alex Mack potential, because I think he's that good, because we saw what Alex Mack did for the Falcons this year, and him playing that centerpiece for the offensive line with such consistency and with such talent is a big reason why we saw the Falcons make such a jump from their 2015 production to their 2016 production in terms of efficiency included. So I think Marpet has that kind of potential. I think they realize that too, and I think that they're being as careful as they can with Marpet to get the absolute most out of them, because they know they have an all-pro player on their hands. They just have to decide where plugging him in early in his career is going to get the most out of him. So I guess that would be my number two. My number two matchup to watch for is at left guard between Sweezy and Pamphlet, because if Sweezy beats him out, even if it's just off of principle, then that means that Pamphlet can play that right guard position and Marpet can swing inside to center.
So let me ask you about this, and I guess this is more of your personal opinion, unless you have some sort of insight, because the signing of Hawley to me is the re-signing, actually, I guess, of Hawley is a little bit of a head scratcher, because we still had Smith, on the roster. Was the re-signing of Hawley like insurance if Sweezy doesn't work out and Pamphlet has to stay on the left side, and then that would presumably put Ali back over, on the right side as guard, and now we're down to Smith and Hawley? Is it just kind of an insurance thing for that, or why else would they do that if it really seems like they're going to be, drifting towards moving? Because the center three, neither of the two names that you mentioned were Smith or Hawley. Both guys who we now have back under contract with the team. Why would they have signed Hawley if they didn't actually have him in their plans to use him?
I will say this. I think they're okay with Hawley's talents, but I know for a fact that this team and this front office especially really like Joe Hawley as a leader in the locker room, and bringing him back, I think is more. I really do think that it is more of a testament to him as a leader of the group than anything else. Because from what I heard from people who were doing the negotiations of these deals and what was going to happen in the offensive line, they wanted to bring Joe Hawley back at the right price, because he's really from what I heard, he has stepped up as the leader since Logan Mankins, right? Yeah. Since he left. It's kind of been Joe Hawley who's been able to rally guys and be the guy in the locker room and all that kinds of stuff. So I honestly think that that's a big reason why they brought him back. Not that I don't think he can't play, because I think they do. But when you wait that long to sign a guy, especially giving him the time to possibly sign with other teams, that means that you're probably okay with losing him, which means he's not your primary option. So that would be the insider in me who has something to say on that.
Interesting.
I like it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And it's something just to throw my hat in the ring on that thing. Those guys are really important, but also Russell Shepard, who we lost, was a big locker room guy. So bringing in Hawley, not only losing Hawley and Shepard as locker room guys, maybe they bring him in and the price that they want to pay more. Maybe it's more for leadership and a bridge player as more than an emergency. Also an emergency, but I don't think bringing him in to be starting week one is the main reason they brought him back. So I'll go ahead and jump into my number two. I'm going to go with something that Brent and I have been worried about for since we've been talking Buccaneer football. Is the safety position. Once again, I do think a rookie's going to be drafted. Obviously, I'm high on Obi, but there's many really good safeties out there. Jones from North Carolina State pops to mind. And there's something I want to ask you, Trevor, when I finish with this. But we have, Keith Tandy. And before the combine, a lot of people were wondering, is Tandy going to start? Do you think he has to re-earn the job? But during the combine interviews, one of the things I do about picking up the little things was Dirk Cutter said, we need another starting safety. Now, he didn't mention Tandy, but at the time, there's Tandy and a futures player on the on the roster. So pretty much, if you meant to do it or not, what he's saying is we have Tandy, and now we need somebody to fill the other position, which they went out and got J.J. Wilcox, and I kind of see him as a Bradley McDougall light. Same kind of exact player, solid tackler, misses a little more, hits a little harder. But say what you will about McDougall, as I call him the barn owl because he is a predator, but he's just not really a sexy one. He only gave up one touchdown, last year. So yeah, it was super solid back there. So now we got Wilcox, and of course, the lightning rod Chris Conte, who I think is just back for depth. But having those three players and then bringing in one of these safeties who I think they're going to go round 4 latest, but I would be surprised if it's in the top 3 rounds at all. Bringing these guys in and see who's going to play next Tandy, or maybe even Tandy ends up getting beat out. But that's something I'm going to be looking for. Position battles comes around training camp, the safety position.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, that's certainly one of the things we have talked about a lot, Ren, as you mentioned, is that particular idea. Now, I think the bigger position battle at safety really is going to be between Tandy and Conti, not so much the other side of it. I know those two guys can whatever. But I'm interested to see what happens between those guys. Is Conti, who was the starting guy, is he going to be able to get his spot back, even though Tandy really kind of came in and stepped up and, he was red hot at the end of last year. So that to me is a little bit more on the safety side of it, because I do think, as you say, we will draft a safety. Now, will he be a day one starter, or will we be going with Wilcox or something else? I don't know. But Trevor, do you have any insight on that? I wouldn't say insight, but I'll just agree with Ren's point. They're going to draft somebody else to come in and be that fourth safety, whether it is Josh Jones from NC State or Eddie Jackson from Alabama, maybe Justin Evans from Texas A&M. I think it's going to be of the strong safety mold. I don't think. I'll just say that when asked about Keith Tandy, they weren't as gung-ho as – now, this is just me reading body language and expression of tone when asked questions, which could be taken like however you want to see it. So it's certainly not law, but they were not as gung-ho talking about Tandy as maybe one would have seemed. They like him. I'm not saying they don't, and I'm not saying that they don't think that he could be the starter. But it wasn't like, they were going like, yep, Tandy's the guy at free safety going into the year. I think that they're honest with themselves, and they're going to try. And this is the thing about a Mike Smith defense too. Free and strong safety are two positions, and they do have their differences here and there. But in a Mike Smith defense, both of these positions are asked to do a lot of the same stuff, more so than in other defenses. So they are really going to try to get the best four safeties that they can. I think, relative to price tag. Obviously, they've already spent with Wilcox in free agency, but if it's a free safety, ends up being a free safety, like if Marcus Williams from Utah falls or Marcus May from Florida, maybe that's the guy, and they bring him in and they want to see what they could do. But I do think a fourth safety, is coming in the draft. But who it is really almost completely open because of how Mike Smith plays his defense. They're just going to take the best safety they can. I would assume at either that second or third pick, depending on what they do with 19.
The question I was going to ask you, and I really don't want to dally on this too long, but I want your professional opinion on this. Mm-hmm. What about Desmond King from Iowa, from switching from corner into safety? Like, where's he falling among like the top 5 to 10 guys? Is he in there anywhere?
I wouldn't put him in mine, just because, especially for Tampa, you're not really looking for a guy who's got to make a position switch and fight for a starting spot. Like, at that point, you're admitting that this guy is basically going to be a backup or a fill-in player as you can teach him the position. Now, I did get to talk to Desmond King at the Senior Bowl, and really great dude, really humble guy. And he even, because a lot of times, and this is actually kind of, I guess I'll say it's kind of rare with defensive backs because, and I talk about this a lot when I scout defensive backs, you got to believe you're the baddest dude on the field if you're a defensive back. Because, think about it. You have to mirror cover some of the most athletic people in the world on offense who know where they're going and when the ball is coming to them, and you're supposed to keep up with them, and you have no idea where they're going or what the play is or when the ball's coming. And
half the time you're running backwards.
Yeah, and so that's defensive back is fascinating to me. So if I get excited talking about it, that's why. But so it's with Desmond King. He admitted that he could move to safety, and he said that he was willing to move to safety, and that might be a look for some team in the NFL, but I'm not sure it's the right look for Tampa. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Brent.
No, yeah, I was going to say I'll go ahead and bounce off that because, I mean, that's what we did last year with Ryan Smith, right? We took a guy who was a cornerback and said, hey, we're really going to kind of bring him in, pull him at safety. And they got right to the end of the year and said, yeah, we're going to put him back cornerback. This doesn't work. So I would be hard-pressed to think that they're going to try that again with another player. I just don't personally see that one happening for that. And I'm going to go ahead. I'll do my number 2 pick now. And this is one that's going to kind of be one of those there's a possible draft guy coming out. But, a lot of Bucs fans are talking about this thing. We actually mentioned it just briefly, and I've noticed it really has popped up here a lot lately. The idea that Light tends to sign a free agent and then draft a guy in the same position and kind of do this. And I feel like fans might be making a little bit too much emphasis on that. However, the fact that we did to sign Deshaun Jackson, it is conceivable and possible that we will draft a wide receiver. So to me, a position battle that I could see coming up that I think really might be there is the number 3 wide receiver spot between Humphreys and whoever this possible draft guy is. Now, I'm on record saying I like Humphreys. I love Humphreys, and I'd love to see him there. If he legitimately gets beat out for that number 3 spot, then I'm fine with that. I'd like, just because I like Humphreys, I'd like to see him stay there. But that to me is a position battle on the roster right now, just because I think there's a question mark as to whether or not we're going to have that other wide receiver, that number 3, and if that's going to be Humphreys, because I don't know, given our wide receiver woes over the last couple of years, if Humphreys would have made that into that spot last year. So I'm real interested to see what happens at the wide receiver 3 spot.
Yeah, that's another big one. We're all going to see what comes along. And you're absolutely right about the bridge thing. It was kind of like a fun niche thing to talk about. Now it seems like everyone's jumped on it, and everyone's jumped on it, and everyone thinks that that's the way. Well, it happened one time and it worked out, so he's going to do it again. But he pretty much, and everyone always talks about like Grimes and Hargraves and Ayers and Spence, but I mean, they brought in Darryl Smith and drafted Bond. They brought in Sweezy and they drafted Beninock. Like everybody all the way through. You can even make an argument. We were talking earlier about Ryan Smith because he had Josh Robinson. Ryan Smith played 2 years cornerback and then 2 years safety and then 2 years cornerback in college. So yeah, everything was connected except for Aguayo. But yeah, everyone's gonna want to watch the wide receiver position. Whose turn is it? Trevor's? I think it's Trevor's. My turn?
Yeah. No, I just quick hit on that really quick. I think they're happy with Humphreys, and like you said too, like obviously like everybody is for the production that he had. But there's definitely going to be another wide receiver draft. That whether you want a guy in the slot or whether you want like a wide receiver 3 as like an outside guy. You know what I'm saying? But I'm with you. There's definitely just because, and for whatever reason, Bucs fans have. And I talk about this with Corey Davis. If Corey Davis is there at 19, I'd take him in a heartbeat Because,
Yes.
like, think of the offense with Evans, Corey Davis, and Deshaun Jackson. And Cameron Brate or Adam Humphries, if you want to throw them in. Like, who stops that? Nobody. Like,
And
there's not,
Njoku.
you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So, like, the wide receiver, they're still going to add another wide receiver. And not just add a wide receiver, add a wide receiver that is going to play. So, yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, is it me? Is it my number one?
Your number one, Trevor.
Okay, this one's a little different because it's a position battle for that left defensive end spot, and the reason why I'm calling it a position battle is because William Golson's there now, and he was obviously just signed to the contract that he was signed to. On the right defensive side, you've got Robert Ayers and Noah Spence kind of switching off as the main pass rushers, but on that left defensive end, on that other side, I think a interesting position battle is going to be a newly re-signed William Golson and a coming off his ACL tour, but Jacquez Smith, who will be playing in a contract year.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch how that plays out, because this is a guy who, when he was given a chance to start games, the 2 seasons he was with Tampa Bay, had 6.5 sacks and 7 sacks, not even starting like a full season. So if Tampa wants to be much more of a pass rushing team from both edges, then we're going to see Jacquez Smith get a lot more playing time on that left defensive end than you would think from a guy who they just signed with William Golston. Not that I don't know if he's going to perform bad or whatever, but like if Smith comes out on fire, they're going to play him at that left defensive end, and they're going to get as many sacks as possible. Because one thing that Light said at the Combine, and he smiled and laughed when he said this, is he's like, I know we had a lot of sacks last year, but you can never have too many sacks. And I think that he really meant that. So when I look at the depth chart and I look at, Ayers and Noah Spence they're going to rotate at their right defensive end spot, but how Mike Smith is going to, which preference he's going to show more, whether he's going to want William Golston always in there or most of the time for that size or that run stopping ability, or if he's really going to let Jacquez Smith loose on that spot as well, if he's going to get as much pass rush as he possibly can. So that's kind of a little, just like a preference battle that I'm kind of interested to see what Mike Smith's going to do with.
Yeah, I like it. The way you explained it, it's kind of a little different, because in my head, I was looking as Golson as like the run stopping defensive end, and then on the obvious passing downs, bringing in Jack Smith, kind of
which could be true. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the kind of plan to do for Noah Spence last year, but of course injuries forced it inside. I have a question real quick, and I'm going to get off topic, but I really want to know. Do you think they're going to pull Baker off during passing, like obvious passing downs, and slide Ayers on the inside next to McCoy? Not nearly as much as it would for you to ask that question. That wasn't like an insult to the question or anything. But I like Baker. I think Baker is plenty of a pass rusher to be able to be fine. But like you said, that really interesting thing where they kick Ayers inside, and it's almost like they have 4 pass rushers on there at once, and they just yell "go" the second he hikes it. That's still going to happen. That's definitely going to happen. But I would say that I don't think it's going to happen because Baker can't do it. I think it's going to happen because Mike Smith likes to keep switching it up. Gotcha. Okay, I you know what? I agree with you. I like it. Okay, so my number one, I'm going to go to a position that people freaked out for about 3 days, and then something else happened. I think we signed Deshaun Jackson. No one's talked about again. It's put up, shut up time for Ryan Griffin, backup quarterback. What's going to happen there? We also have Sean Renfrey. We don't know much about him. He went to Duke, but he looks the part. He's 6'5", 225. And as Brent and I have said many times on the show, that they like Ryan Griffin so much, they basically ran with a 53-man roster the past 2 years. Protected him so no one would pluck him off the practice squad. It's hard to see what goes on. And what I'm interested in is that training camp if he does fall on his face. I don't expect it, but if he does, it's something to look at, that the Bucs might be scrambling for a veteran backup as the season comes around. So the quarterback positions, it's the big position, it's the bright light position, and even the backup matters, especially if Jameis goes down for a game or two. Winning one of those 2 games, everyone agrees he goes down for 8 games, the seas's over.
Right.
But if he's only out for 1, 2, possibly 3, if you can go 1-1 or 2-1 or even 1-2, just get some type of win out of games if he goes down, it's a big deal. So I think Bucs fans should look at that, and I'm excited to see what kind of player Ryan Griffin actually is.
Trevor, I'm going to let you respond because I've got some thoughts I want to share on that here in just a second.
No, that's it's going to be a really interesting debate on what's going to happen there. Whether, because I'm also kind of leaning towards the notion that you draft a quarterback every single year. Whether you're doing that,
we talked about it last. We talked about it last thing, and we're both like the same thing. We're kind of like, well, our roster's almost good enough now where you could draft a quarterback every year, like the Patriots do, and then turn him into number 1 draft picks 4 years later.
Right. That's what I'm kind of saying, and I don't know if you guys read that Bucs battle plan that we did, but that was a fun thing where we just kind of went through the entire free agency, and one of the things that I did is with my last pick for the Bucs, I picked Seth Russell from Baylor because he's a kid that just he can sling it. He can throw touchdowns. And look, if you're picking a guy in the 7th round, just give me a guy who can throw touchdowns. Maybe he ends up being something. Maybe he doesn't. And I'm kind of of that mold. I don't really foresee the Bucs doing that. But I will say that Light speaks very highly of both Renfree and of Ryan Griffin. So I know, like you just said, they ended up having this guy so nobody could take him on their roster for so long. So maybe that does validate what he's saying. But I just wanted to throw that in there that they have spoken very highly of him. So I don't know if I would expect any kind of movement to come from there.
Yeah. So Ren, I love you a lot because you actually just picked also my number 1 choice, which is the position battle for backup quarterback. And Trevor, thank you.
Pick running back.
No, well, it's an honorable mention. But Trevor, I'm glad you brought up the whole idea of drafting a quarterback every year. This is an idea that I think I've just recently kind of been on that. I've heard it before in the past, but I'm kind of coming around to it, and I'm more than coming around to it. I'm 270 degrees around to it, and really it makes sense to me why you would do that. And to always be having that new blood, to have that new person come in and not every quarterback you draft is going to be a guy that works out, but quantity over quality sometimes. The more you get in there, the more you're going to have, the more you're going to develop. You're going to get good quality quarterbacks coming in. You're going to give somebody, there's something that happens when you can teach somebody else something. So now Jameis is going to be teaching somebody else something that's going on, which is only going to serve to improve his game theoretically. And, when these guys go out of their rookie contract, you've got, you've got a valuable trade piece. You look at Jimmy Garoppolo. A lot of people were looking at him, or even, you could even say Brock Osweiler, but we all saw how that turned out when he hit his own starting spot. But getting those backup quarterbacks in every single year, a new one, drafting one, to see what happens, and maybe you keep them, maybe you don't, maybe you draft them late. It just makes sense to me. Now, a lot of people are talking about, and Ren, you said this just a second ago, of the idea of bringing in a veteran presence. When you look at a team like the Patriots, you've got a guy like Tom Brady, who is a veteran in and of himself. He's been around for a very, very long time. So to maybe have a newer quarterback underneath him doesn't seem like that seems okay. When you flip that over to Jameis to go, hey, he's not quite there yet. He's not the veteran yet. To be able to have a veteran that can kind of be that voice in his ear a little bit, especially during the game, and to help him with that. And should something happen to Jameis, that guy can step in. But, we saw what happened when Tom Brady went out and Jimmy Garoppolo had to step in for him. this last year. For those first 4 games that he was suspended for, did fine. And there was a lot of people around him that were, that certainly helped that whole situation. But I see that there's a lot of value to drafting a quarterback on every, in every draft class for you. And, whether they come up against Griffin and he maintains his backup spot and you kind of churn that backup position a little bit, or you bring in a veteran, I could see it going either way, just given where Jameis is in his career right now. But that is just the one that I think is probably the most interesting and is probably the most up in the air to me right now is the backup quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, it's you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's the white hot position, and it means so much. Like there's an old saying, depth is great till you need it, and it's great to have a backup quarterback that's saving you money and is young, but if our quarterback goes down, then we all saw what winning one more game would have done, last year. So, yeah, you can't get around it. And like you said, I'm going to be watching really closely what's going on with the quarterback position.
Yep. And just to throw in, I was thinking this as you were talking about, I read, but maybe not draft one every year, but at least every other year it starts to make sense. You know what I'm saying? Because you definitely don't want to go through the thing where it's like, oh yeah, we drafted this guy and he beat out our backup, cool, and then the next year the team's just going to be drafting your replacement. That's not. I don't know. That might be a little weird, but I'm definitely for. I would definitely be for a team doing something like that, especially because we have figured out, or we have learned that time, for whatever reason, makes people forget about your mistakes. Like for whatever reason it is. So like even if the Bucs happen to have a year, like let's say in the next, not this draft, but the next, like let's say the Bucs make the playoffs, they make another nice splash in free agency or something. They've re-signed Mike Evans, all of that. They really almost have the perfect team set up for them. They make the playoffs next year, and then the year after that draft after that, they're sitting around 3rd round. And one of the quarterback prospects just drops, like a kind of a big name quarterback prospect, and they just ended up taking one in the 3rd round. In 2 years, think about what people will think of that guy. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, but remember him? We liked him 2 years ago." And they'll go, "All right, we'll give you like a 2nd round pick for him." Okay, boom, there you go, you moved up, or like a first. Who knows? So I'm definitely with you because I think time, for whatever reason, takes away mistakes.
Ryan Mallett, perfect example.
Yep.
Fair enough. Well, guys, as we round this out, were there any other kind of maybe honorable mentions, position battles that didn't quite make your list that you were thinking of? Trevor, I'll toss it to you first.
Running back's got to be one of them. It's such an uncertain position right now, and I will say that I really like Jacquizz Rodgers. I think he's a fantastic compliment running back. And when Martin went out and when Sims went out, you just watch a guy who likes to do and get the dirty yards, like is always falling forward, is always fighting for it. And that's what you need from a running back. You need dynamic guys, sure, whatever, here and there. But like he also had the longest run of the season, I think, which you wouldn't have thought. And so I really like that they brought Rodgers back. I think it was great. I think it was a good re-signing. But yeah, they got to draft another running back. I actually, like I said, I wouldn't think that it's a first round running back. I don't think they're going to take one there. But I think that Kareem Hunt, Marlon Mack, somebody like that in maybe day 3 is you can almost expect that to be on the roster and to get serious playing time next year because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that was the only one I had left as well, and Trevor nailed it. Like you said, he saved our he saved our biscuits last year from being able to find him and pull him off the street with the history he had with Cutter. He'd been in his offense for a couple years in Atlanta too, and he can pick up the blitz. From about Jacquizz Rodgers, of course, he can pick up the blitz on 3rd down, and he can do it all. He's just not your franchise back, but but he's a damn good, very solid NFL running back that is going to get you the tough yards, and he's not going to be afraid to stick his nose in there. He's going to do everything he can, and with little drawback, you don't really lose a lot with him. But yeah, picking up a running back, that's going to be it, and it's pretty much going to be, at least for this year, a three-headed monster back there if Sims can stay healthy, of course.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. And I already mentioned that running back was a good honorable mention. I think it is for all of us. There's just the big unknown of what are we going to do with Doug, and what is that going to look like out of the draft, and where is our running back position going to be come training camp. So, well, fans, now we'd like to know how your picks really stack up against ours. You can let us know on Twitter or Facebook at the PewterCast, or email us at thepewtercast@gmail.com. Well, guys, before we get out of here, why don't we take a look at this week's poll?
It's real bad, okay? I don't like those numbers at all.
Just one poll? Those things aren't scientific.
Yes, they are. All this is science. This is math.
Well, guys, this week we thought we'd ask. Ren actually suggested this topic, and I thought it was great. We thought we'd ask if you wanted to see the Bucs on Hard Knocks this year. The Bucs are up for it. It's one of the teams that they could potentially have on there, and so it was real simple. When we said yes. You hope that they're picked. You said no, the show is lame, or no, the show is bad luck. Well, before we reveal what the fans picked, Trevor, Ren, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the Bucs potentially being on Hard Knocks?
Go ahead, Trevor.
I'm just going to say that I believe I was the very first person to vote in this poll because I refreshed the Twitter feed when you guys put it up. And I voted yes because I love Hard Knocks. And I know that I probably shouldn't want to vote yes because then I lose some of my insider touch because you guys get to see some of it. But I don't know. I think Hard Knocks is so well produced. I think it's so much fun to watch every week. And don't get me wrong, I definitely understand why teams themselves would hate it. But just me as somebody who likes knowing as much as they can about the team and like having players mic'd up, that's probably the coolest part for me. Is when these players get they're mic'd up and you get to like see their personalities on the field during practice, like outside of practice, how they do stuff, blah, blah, blah. I think it's really cool. I think the Bucs would probably hate it for whatever it's worth, but yeah.
I was torn, and actually I've changed my mind. Like when this was first thrown out there, in the Buck fandom gate, I was absolutely not. I'm like, no way. I'm like, I don't want the distraction. I don't want any of it. Then, and I'm opposite of Trevor. Like, I've seen one Hard Knocks episode in my whole entire life, and that was the first one last year for the Rams. And then, no offense, and I'm not trying to call anybody out, but I saw how dumb Jared Goff was. The guy didn't know the sun. Wow. He didn't know the sun rose in the east and set in the west. I'm just like, oh, you got to be kidding me! Like, and I thought Tank Top Man was funny. I thought that was pretty cool, but that's the only episode I've ever seen. But now, and it's exactly why Trevor said why he feels he shouldn't. It's because now I do want that. I mean, my thirst for Buck knowledge is like it can't be quenched. And I've also heard a lot of people say like after 2 days you really don't notice the cameras are there, so it's not really a big a distraction as you think it is. So. So me wanting to get as much inside information as the Bucs. So when the poll did come out, I voted yes, but I wish I could take away the exclamation mark. I wasn't like yes. I was like yes, I'd like it, and just kind of like the same reason Trevor does is I want to see that inside information about my team.
Yeah, one of the answers that I couldn't fit in there because Twitter limits the amount of characters we can use was yes, I do. But no, I don't at the same time. Was this kind of back and forth.
That would have been my vote.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit more where I am. But as far as the fans who voted in this poll, coming in winning the poll at 53%, so just over half said yes, they actually would like to see the Bucs on Hard Knocks.
Wow.
Yeah, 37% said no, they think the show is bad luck, and 10% said, the show's lame. So, there you go. And to be fair, Ren, you actually are beating me on your total number of episodes of Hard Knocks watched because I've not seen a single one. But I guarantee you, if the Bucks were on it, I would watch every single episode, maybe even twice. And Ren, we might just have a whole new run of bonus content to do for every episode that they have on there. So it would be something to do that. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this segment. And actually, that is going to do it for Trevor for this episode. Trevor, thank you so much for calling in and being a part of this episode with Ren and I.
Yeah, man, I had a blast. It was a lot of fun.
Well, fantastic. Why don't you take a moment and just kind of let us know where people can get a hold of you on the internet. And you guys have a brand new podcast over there at pewterreport.com. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, we do. I guess I'm new to Pewter Report, but I guess it's been a kind of a long standing request that they get their own podcast because so many of you guys do it. And I'm noticing that you guys do it really well. So I'm not sure why they were asking for us so much, but yeah, it's called PewterNation. It's hosted every week. We put it on our website, but it's also just got on iTunes. It's on SoundCloud, so you can find it anywhere there. You can find all my work, obviously, at pewterreport.com or interact with me anytime on twitter.com at Tampa Bay Trey. I love talking with people, whether it's Bucks football, NFL football, the NFL draft, or just, being weird and funny and having a good time. So that's probably the best way to interact with me. And so if you want to give me a follow there, you can.
Well, again, Trevor, thank you so much for being there. And guys, definitely make sure you go check out, subscribe, leave reviews to the PewterNation on iTunes and whatever your favorite particular podcasting platform is. And follow Tampa Bay Trey. Now, Trevor, we've been calling you Trevor all episode. Should we have been calling you Trey? Is that a preferred name for you, or how does that work?
No, actually, no one has ever called me Trey. It just is that's just the name that I came up with my senior year of high school. I just came up with a Twitter handle, Tampa Bay Trey, and it was kind of good. I went away from it for a little bit, but when I got the job with Pewter Report, I came back to it just because it had the name Tampa Bay in it, and that was the team I was covering. But no, you guys did the right thing. You called me by the right name. I'm actually just surprised that when you introduced me at the very beginning, you got my last name right and you said Sikkema, because so many people just butcher the crap out of that, like Sikkema, Sikkema, all kinds of different stuff. So I was just very proud of you for doing that.
Well, for whatever it's worth, I did cheat because I listened to the first minute and a half of the PewterNation podcast where Mark introduced you. I went, that's how you say his name. Awesome. Trevor Sikkema. Let's do that.
Then at least you did your homework, so I'm still proud of
you. Well, there you go. Well, Trevor, once again, thank you so much for being a part of the show. And like we said, fans, that's going to do it for this segment. Stay with us. There is one more segment that Ren and I are going to be closing out the show with. It's a brand new segment called Secret Confessions. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Right now, for you, the PewterCast fans, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Now, this month, guys, I'm reading, let's be honest, I'm listening to the book Smart Money, Smart Kids by Rachel Cruz and Dave Ramsey. As a father, I really want my kids to win at life. And a big part of that, as I've recently come to realize, is that means that they also need to learn how to win with money. And this book is chock full of ideas that are age-appropriate lessons that as a parent, I can actually be teaching my kids. So, and it'll work for you. Whether your kids are already teenagers, no, it's not too late to get them started on this. Or whether you're like me and you have a 4-year-old, it's not too early to get them started on this either. So I'm highly recommending Smart Money, Smart Kids by Rachel Cruz and Dave Ramsey. You can pick that up and read along with me. But of course, you can download any of Audible's 180,000 titles that you can choose from, and they'll go to your iPhone, your Android, your Kindle, or your MP3 player. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/thepewtercast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/thepewtercast for your free audiobook. And we're back. This is episode 31 of the PewterCast, and by we, I mean it's just Ren and me, because Trevor had to take off on us. And again, we thank you so much, Trevor, for being a part of the show. Really was more than we could have ever asked for, especially giving us some new insight. Ren, we were just kind of talking about a little bit between the break, or during the break there, about just the insight that Trevor was really able to bring to that conversation about the Combine.
Yeah, we really weren't sure how that whole segment was going to go, and after Trevor took off, we're like really pleased with the direction that it went, and it's all that insider stuff and the stuff where he's talking about the Shrine game, and every time the word like Deshaun Jackson would be brought up, and you could just see Jason perk up or maybe stand a little straighter, or maybe the corners of his mouth would start to turn up a bit with a tiny smile. So yeah, I mean, I can't thank him enough for coming on. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you should. He's a real fun follow, besides just being a Bucks reporter at the gold standard of Bucks reporting. He talks about some other stuff too, and it's all, like you said, it's very light, it's very fun. He's a real good Twitter follow, so I recommend follow him at Tampa Bay Trey. And
he's super interactive too, which is always appreciated as a fan, to know that you can interact with people that are there getting firsthand information from the people at $1.
The Robert Ayers of Tampa Bay reporters.
Hey, listen, he may have a new fanboy. Trevor Sikkema may. He just might. So, well, guys, for today's discussion segment, because that is the part where we are here at the show, we're introducing a brand new segment called Secret Confessions, because I just couldn't get more creative with naming this particular one. But here's what's going to happen. Ren and I are going to kind of reveal our deepest, darkest secret as a Bucks fan. Now, I'm not really sure how we're ever going to bring this segment back once we do this one time, but we'll see exactly where this takes us. But, warning to everyone out there, what you're about to hear is not for the faint of heart, Bucks fans. This may cause weeping and gnashing of teeth. So ye have been warned. Listen further at your own risk. Ren, I'm going to toss it to you first. Deepest, darkest secret confession as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. What do you need to, kind of clear the air with and get off your chest?
I almost gave up on my team a couple years ago. I almost quit following them. I almost cashed in my jerseys and my hats, and I almost washed my hands with the whole entire organization. And thank God I didn't. And I feel terrible even saying that. It all started with oh God, I can't believe it. I just drew a blank. Who the coach?
Raheem or Greg Schiano?
Yeah. Raheem. It's all right with Raheem. And it was nothing against Raheem, but when you go from defensive back coach to head coach in 2 days, your team's not looking to win. They weren't looking to put a contender on the field. Let Lynch go, let Brooks go, let Sapp go. And then after Raheem, people say that he did such a good job in the first year. I'm not saying he didn't, but when he went 10-6, that was probably the easiest schedule I've ever seen a football team have. And I'm not trying to be cute or fancy or trying to back up my point about how disappointing the Raheem Morris years were. It was I remember looking at it and I'm going we could win 12 games. And then after that, we went 10-6. They didn't sign any free agents. So once again, the ownership group is reinforcing this feeling of we're not spending any money on your team. Oh, but hey, come and buy seat licenses and pay $20, $40 for parking and $9 for a Coke and $22 for a beer. And so I started to weigh in on it. And then it kind of felt near the end, it felt like the team quit on him. Almost like the inmates were running the asylum. Mm-hmm. Then Schiano came in, and I don't think he was given a fair shake. And I'm not going to sit here and say that he was a great coach and should have been stayed longer and he was the answer. But I don't think he was not nice to the media. We knew that coming in from Rutgers. He wasn't a media guy. He tried to limit the media to his players, and they just never let up on him. It was, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you would hear more stories about what a terrible coach Greg Schiano was every single day than anything about really the actual team. And I thought the team played hard for him. Wasn't a very good team, especially offensively. You know, then Josh Freeman, you know, he started getting to having troubles, and then, you know, we had Kellen Winslow Jr., who I view as was kind of like a bad seed in the locker room, and he was kind of like one of the leaders of the team, and it was just not the whole vibe just wasn't good. And then we brought in Lovey year one, and I wasn't a huge Lovey fan. I mean, I knew him when he was on, of course, you know, Tony Dungy's staff here, and I was glad to see a guy come home, but he never really impressed me as a coach with the Bears. And you know, then they went 2-14. And what finally snapped, you know, what almost made me snap was when that terrible stat that came out about how the Buccaneers defensive backs were giving up, or defense, I shouldn't say defensive back, but the defense was giving up a 70% pass completion. And Lovie Smith just basically looked at the media, you know, the Tampa Bay media guys, and said, you know, you can make stats say anything you want to. And I felt like saying, oh, really? Can you make the record say, you know, 11-5 then? It was just such a slap in the face, as in, like, you know, you don't know what's going on. And the media is is how we get our fandom. Like, it's channeled through them. The questions that they answer are the ones that hopefully we want answered. And so I felt like, you know, he just didn't care about the fans, the community. I shouldn't say community, but he wasn't into it as he didn't see things as important. He was kind of like building his little wall, and, you know, you can't tell me who to hire on defense. You know, my son's there, but he has no experience. And then Leslie Frazier's there, but you take the job away from him, but you keep him as a defensive coordinator. It was just all this stuff. And I almost threw in the towel, and I quit following him on a daily basis for sure. I don't even think I watched their last couple of ball games. And would have been 2014, I think. Mm-hmm. But and then the whole off season, and it was just such kind of like a cluster around the Buccaneers and Jameis Winston, as because, you know, there was all these question marks. He was such a polarizing figure, and I didn't know anything about him because I'm not a Florida State fan, and I was ready. I'm like I don't like the way this is going, and I haven't liked it for like 4 years now. But you know, but they drafted Jameis, and he pretty much brought me back into the fold, put me under his wing as a fan, and I learned my lesson, and I'll never go anywhere again. I might get mad, might get upset. Luckily, I have, you know, places like this now, like a podcast, where I can vent and maybe make me feel better instead of just stewing in my own little world. Just, you know, me in my house. But that was it. I almost cashed in my Buccaneer fandom. I almost pushed my chips in the middle of the table and, you know, walked away. I was almost done.
Wow. Well, I guess the real question is do you repent of ever? Do you turn from that way and stay in the true course of the Buccaneer fandom?
My son, everyone's face gets shook every once in a while. Well, I like the Irish priest better than the shame bell from Game of Thrones, so I'll take that. Yeah, like I said, I'll never wave again. You know, now that once Jameis got here, that's when I seriously started getting to Buccaneers football. I was like following it every day. That's when I like discovered Twitter and discovered, you know, people like Tampa Bay Trade. That's when I discovered Pewter Report, Greg Allman, the other sites out there. And now there's so much interaction, and all you do, you know, you're just carrying it around in your phone. Like, we all have this thing in our pocket that can answer just about every question you ever have, and right. You know, and it's right there. So yeah, I'll never leave again. It's just, you know, they're my boys. I've been there since year one. Season tickets first 10 years. Yeah, but my deepest darkest secret is something that I don't think I've ever told anybody, honestly. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell thousands of people. Great. Yeah, I was this close to washing my hands of the whole organization.
You know, I have said a few times on this show that there was a period where I actively tried to be a fan of some other team other than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because I couldn't take it anymore. I mean, I hit the fed up ceiling just like you did, and I actively tried finding another team, and what I found at the end was I just couldn't do it. Like, even when they were at their worst, even when they were just as horrible as all get out, you know, I'd be at the sports bar and trying to watch this other team that I was trying to be a fan of, but I wound up watching the Bucs game more than I did that one. You know, like, and it's just, that's the point I realized. The pewter is in me. You know, like, it's coursing through my veins no matter what happens with this team. By the way. Yeah, but hey, listen. We all drink the Kool-Aid poison. And if you're listening to this show for going on the second hour, you too have drank the poison, the pewter poison, because you just have it in you at that point, right? It's just in you. And even if you wanted to give up, you couldn't. And this was the thing I didn't talk about, was it in the last episode where I'd kind of posed that question, like, how much money would it take for you to become a fan of another team?
Right.
You know, and I said, you know, hey, listen, if they want to come pay me for 3 years, $1.275 whatever $1 million a year to change the name of this from the PewterCast to the PantherCast, yeah, I'd probably do it, to be honest. But in my heart, in the fandom that lies deep within me, I'm still a Buccaneers fan no matter what. And you know, I may change the name of this one, but I'd have like the PewterCast one on the side, you know, just because it's just there. You can't get out of it. You know, I may go root for somebody else on the outside, but on the inside, I'm cursing their names and hope, you know, I think we do have a price. But I get it. I get what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder, fans, why don't you shoot us an email or a text or a tweet or I guess you can't text us. We haven't released our personal phone numbers, but you can tweet us or Facebook or something and let us know. Have you ever reached that spot of despair with this team? It's not unheard of. And in some ways, I think the podcast, you know, Derek over at What the Buck actually talks about the podcast is a little bit of a catharsis for when things are at their worst, you know? So I think we could, some of us or many of us could certainly relate to that. So, well, I guess it's my turn, huh?
Yep.
My turn.
Thank you for making me go first, by the way. I was like, I'm throwing it to you, Red. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah. It's one of the perks of being the host leading this particular conversation. I may hand this over to you someday. Today is not that day. Deepest dark. Okay, this is one that is more like I never planned on ever telling anybody in America that this ever happened. And I won't say that I ever actively lied. I just didn't correct people on the truth. You know, you guys should understand. I'm nearly 6.5 feet tall. I'm 6'4", 6'5", depending on the weather that particular day. And I am not a small framed person at all. I look like I could be a football player. At least at one point in my life, I could have been a football player. Let's put it that way. And there was a period of my life where actually I lived overseas. I lived in South Korea for a long time. And while I was over there, I would wear my jersey that had my name printed on the back. I did. Yeah. It's, you know, it was my name. It was my jersey. It was a gift from my parents a bunch of years ago. And people would come up and ask me and, you know, like, get my autograph and take pictures with me, like this NFL player. And I was just like, yeah, come on, I'll take a picture with you. I'll sign your autograph.
NFL player wears their jersey around a vacation?
I know, but
look,
they didn't know that. They just saw big white American in a football jersey. He must obviously play. Let me go get pictures with him. This was also the same group of people that would run around, like the little kids would you know, okay, let me back up. The old people would look at me and they would stare at me. You know, right. Like the old ladies were like the most slick, like they wouldn't move their head, they just move their eyes. And as I'd walk by, you just hear this, you know, the older men would, like, they would full on, they wouldn't say anything, but they would stare and come up and look me up and down and just going, man, why are you so big, tall, and around? What is going on? The kids would come up and stare and do all of that, but they were very vocal. It was, whoa, oh. And after a couple months of being there, I started picking up on there was this word they kept using. They'd look at me and they go, oh, Haggarid, Haggarid, Haggarid. And I was just, I didn't know what the word meant. I didn't know Korean at the time. And then I went to go see the new Harry Potter movie that had just come out in the theater.
They were calling you Hagrid.
They were calling me Hagrid.
No.
Yeah. It was Hagrid. And it was that exact scene where, Harry's already met Hagrid, but like Ron and the rest of them hadn't, and they come off the train, and Harry's like, hey, what's up, Hagrid? And the rest of the kids audibly go, whoa. And Hagrid's just like, yeah, whatever, come on, guys, let's go. And I'm like, that's me. They're calling me Hagrid. Dang it. So my deepest, darkest secret is that I legitimately posed as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer player and did not correct anyone. And movie star. And I don't know if that's my deepest, darkest secret, but it's the one I'm going to give.
It's a good story, but geez, man, I feel like I've been hung out to dry here.
Okay, I never liked John Gruden as a coach. How about that one?
Ooh, you'll probably find a lot of people that agree. That's a good.
I know he won the Super Bowl, and I know that it would have been a different story if Tony Dungy had been in that year. Probably would have been a different story if Tony Dungy had been in that year, and whatever. But honestly, past that, every move after the Super Bowl, I did not think John Gruden was that great of a coach. And whenever people go, "Oh, let's bring back John Gruden," I go, "No, let's not at all." I just didn't. It's my own opinion. I just didn't think so. No,
I could see that one. I mean, that's a good one, but I can understand it. He was from what I understand, it was very difficult to work with, and very my way or the highway, and the friction between him and Monty Kiffin at the offense and the defense was just like supposed to be like. There
was apparently a lot of friction between him and Warren Sapp as well, which is the main reason, as I understand it. And if somebody out there knows something different, please correct me. But as I understand it, that is the main reason why Warren Sapp was not on the team the following year, was because of the beef that he and Gruden constantly got into. So, I don't know. I guess we'll find that out. But we'll save that conversation for another Secret Confessions on a future episode of the PewterCast. Well, Ren, I think that's going to make an episode for us, buddy. What do you think?
Are we live?
Yeah, we are live.
Sorry.
I know. I'm just trying something different. Just trying.
It's always for a loop. Yeah, I mean, once again, we've eclipsed the 2-hour mark, and we keep trying to shorten it up. But, we get on these conversations. I hope that, and I think everyone finds them fun and interesting if you can't listen to them all in one sitting. But I think this is our best episode as for 2017. The stuff that Trevor gave us was gold, and it was real fun to talk to him and listen to him and get someone's point of view besides yours and mine. The Joe Hawley thing was really interesting to think about, and he brought it, and I'm so happy we had him on. I think everyone's really going to love this episode.
Yeah, Trevor did fantastic. Once again, guys, go follow him at Tampa Bay Trey. You can catch him on Twitter, or definitely find him on PewterReport.com with his articles coming out there. He's got some really good ones out there, and certainly catch him and the rest of the Pewter Report people on their brand new podcast who've joined the plethora. Ren, I think we went and we counted that. When we started at the PewterCast, there were 3 viable Tampa Bay podcasts out there, and we made number 4. There are now 14 by my count. 14 separate podcasts that you can download about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Some of them are really, really great, and some of them people are still finding their feet with them. Let's just say it that way.
Which is good, though. I mean, there's something out there for everybody. You just want, I kind of find it sad down here in the Tampa Bay area that, we're only a one newspaper town now. And, I think I find that a little dangerous, to be honest. I mean, no, I'm not like freaking out and think there's a big conspiracy, but competition, the cream rises to the top, and the more information Buck fans can have, I think it's good. And it's a microcosm of things that are coming, as far as like everybody's feeling this huge wave of Buccaneer. I keep calling it the Buccaneer Golden Age. The Golden Age of being a Bucs fan is just beginning. Like this year, this is it. These are going to be our, I know I'm taking this too far, but these are going to be our Tom Brady Patriot years. These are going to, if everything, works out, they're going to keep the same core pieces in place, and we're just going to keep chugging forward, and 10-win season after 10-win season after 10-win season, and all these people are feeling it, and they want to get their voice heard and get it out, and it's not really that expensive, and you just push a button and it gets out there, and I think it's great.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, guys, that's going to wrap up this episode. As a final reminder, you can get in touch with us about anything that we've talked about today at facebook.com/thepewtercast or on Twitter @thepewtercast. You can catch me personally at Brent Allen Live. Ren, where can they catch you personally out there on Twitter?
At Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'll talk Bucs football all the time. If you like this podcast, give me a follow. I talk about the same stuff. I pretty much Buccaneers all the way. Sometimes I throw in movies in there, not too much music. But yeah, you got any questions? You want to talk to me or you're fans of the show? Hit me up on Twitter. I will talk about football all day with you.
Or if you're a little more winded than the 140 characters will let you do on Twitter, you can always shoot us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. Well, guys, we talked about this a little bit last year, and Ren, I think what you were just saying a second ago is a perfect segue into this closing little bit of, guys, get your hopes up. There's a lot of great stuff. The free agents that we've been signing, the draft is coming up here really soon, just around the corner. We've got fantastic players that are returning, our coaches, our front office staff. Things really, I don't know, have ever looked better for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm even including those years back in the late 90s as far as the hope that is on there. So go ahead, get your hopes up, and be expecting big things, because I believe, and I know you do too, big things are coming for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and for us as fans. So guys, until next time, until the next episode, go Bucs.